What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Transparency. Let's do this. We're going to give you guys a very, very specific timeline. It's going to start on July 3rd. July 3rd. Okay. First thing we want to note here is Nolan was in his vehicle, and he goes to a friend's house on July 3rd. He's going to spend the night at his friend's house, and then from there, wake up in the morning, and then they're going to go drive to where they're all going to launch off at the private dock. So what I mean when I say private dock, the boat that Nolan was on was right here on El Camino Real Road. So this is the private. So as you can see here, you get all these nice houses. They all butt up against, you know, the lovely water, the lovely channels here, the Mississippi Sound, baby. So El Camino Real Road, as you can see where my little pointer is. Now this house had a dock, a private dock, and the police, the Jackson sheriffs, they went around and they were able to get different people's like Nest Ring cameras. A lot of these places will have their cameras both in the front and both in the back. And so it's really important to understand that Nolan's vehicle, his truck, he parked it on the grass on July 3rd at a friend's house. This friend and he, they were then going to go to where the core group of 4 people were going to be, which was Nolan and 3 other friends, one of which he spent the night at on July 3rd. His dad knew this, where he was going to be parking his truck, and then they were all going to drive together to go to where the boat, and it's a 23-footer. Okay. I have a boat, and I wanted to find out how big the boat was. It's a 23-footer. So I was like, boom, that's one of our questions. Now, July 3rd, what happened? Okay. His truck is then at a different location because when they wake up in the morning, he leaves his truck at his friend's house that he parked on the street, or on the grass rather, and drives over to a residence here on El Camino Real. So this boat was parked at a private dock at a house. That's what that private dock word means, is that one of these right here. And they then get on the boat from driving to a friend's location here to then get on the boat. And then they're going to pull away from, so this is then the morning of July 4th. So it's a myth that is out there. This young man, Nolan's phone, keys, wallet, they were not all together. And they were not handed over like some friend going to the mom's house and saying, here you go. That's not how this happened at all. So his truck was at a different location, was at a different house. His keys, because his dad goes, you're going to see in the story here. So right there at the end of the tail of July 4th into the 5th, his dad goes to where his truck was parked. And when his dad goes to that house, he is initially lied to and said that they looked all over and they can't find the keys. And then one of the kids that was at the house finally came clean to the dad and was like, they're on top of the Xbox console. We're going to get into that because I want to go in order. So the camera footage that we are taking that shows that this vehicle, and it matches up with the GPS data, and it matches up with cameras that were taken from residents right here. 9:56 a.m. is when they're able to see Nolan is perfectly like in good spirits and he's alive and he's getting on that boat. So 9:56 a.m. is basically where this starts, minus the fact that I have to talk about July 3rd because you need to know where his truck is. And his truck wasn't at this residence, and it's not going to be at the Cardinal Lane residence that we're going to get into. So at 9:56 a.m., the GPS data leaves the mainland. And that boat is then tracked from 9:56 a.m. until 11:14 a.m. And it goes to the tip at the northwest point of where the partying was happening at Horn Island. Okay. So now we're going to get into some stuff. Okay. There is a kid that's named Warren. Warren is the stepson of Ashley Cole, who is a judge in the area. That's so Warren and Nolan are friends. According to the judge, Ashley, that's her stepson. There was a core group of 4, and that core group of 4 is going to end up getting larger to 7 people. But the core group of 4 is Nolan, Warren, and then I've named them as unknown A male core, unknown B male core. Shepard is another friend that comes forward, and he's like, that's my voice that was on the video. So that's the name Shepard. And then Williams he traveled completely separate. But these 2 people are going to become important because one of the moms of Nolan's friend is how things get going to locate his phone and his wallet. And we're going to get into that. But so those are the most important names that you need to know about is Shepard, Williams, Warren, Ashley Cole. So here we go. All right. So from 9:54 to 11:17, GPS has them. That boat is out where it needs to be and where it should be. Then at 4 o'clock, well, I take that back. At 2:33, the video that I showed in episode 1, it was meta timestamped at 2:33. Now, TMZ released a new video that just has come out, and I put it in the post section of my channel. And hold on. So the video of the scanning by Anna Moore, that was embedded. It came back as being taken at 2:33 p.m. Now there's a closer up video that just had surfaced, even in between me doing that live this morning and right now. And that is a video and a post of a picture that I believe it's Nolan, and he's on the back deck of a much larger boat. And on that boat is a white older male. Okay, so, and it's just those 2 people that you can see, but all around it you can see a group of African American kids, and then you can also see like there's just people all over. But I can definitely see that there's not just like one black kid. All right, it was predominantly white, but there was definitely, and you can go check out my page. I posted it. You go to the post section, and you can see the different pictures. And those are the new photos that have now come to light. We're going to do that at the end. I just care about this timeline. Now, 4 o'clock. So you have from 11:17 until 4 o'clock. Think about this. If you don't have your phone on you and you don't have a watch on you because you're hanging out, you're in the water. If you were to ask somebody, hey, what time did you last talk to, Nolan or whatever? There is not a sighting, and nobody can say that they saw Nolan that has come forward past 4 or 4:30. And now the reason this is important is because now we're going to get into this timeline. One of his friends did say that when he saw Nolan, he was definitely talking to a girl. And this is more in like the 3:00 time. 3:30. That's what they were gauging. But again, just look at it this way. You don't know. Okay. They cannot say for certain what time it was. So now we're going to go to the things that we can talk about. 4 p.m. An emergency distress call, which has not been released. So anybody that's saying that this has been released, it has not been released. The family wants it to be completely released if there's more. They don't know if it's been fully released. There's little slips. But the emergency distress call, and that's at 4 p.m. And what was interesting in it is that it's at the west tip of Horn Island, which is consistent with where the boat was when it actually arrived. So west tip. I want to get this boat unsank and towed back, in quotes. Now, from 4:00 until 4:31, this boat did not move from 4 to 4:31. Now, 7 people were on the vessel at the time of the call. 7 people. So, again, when they left to go out, do I believe that there was more than the core 4? Yes, I do. Do they seem to have video evidence of that? Yes, but all they could say is that we couldn't tell you exactly how many kids went out at 9:54 from the private dock of the house. But out of those 7 kids, okay, when this boat makes it back, and we're going to have a bunch of different times, but the cameras that saw the kids get on and leave, those same cameras were the ones that were used to determine that Nolan did not come back on that boat. And nor was there anybody carrying like a body or something. If that has come out and given to authorities, it's not out there anywhere that you can find. That would be with the police. So we're going to go back to what we can talk about. At 4:31 to 5:25, the GPS logs on the boat it was towed or was going at a very slow speed for 3 miles. So from 4:31 to 5:25, it is going at a very slow speed, and it is believed to be towed. And that is equivalent. They travel 3 miles. Now, I wanted to know how far it was from this, where they left, to Horn Island, and it was 12 miles exactly. So I know that we've been hearing, 10. It's 12 miles. At 5:25 p.m., the GPS now is registering normal speed under its own power at 5:25. Then at 5:44 p.m., the boat returns to mainland dock. And I said, I really want to look at that time stamp of 5:44. And the reason I'm doing this is because let's just do simple math. If you're leaving at 9:54 and you arrive at 11:17, that took you 1 hour and 23 minutes to get out there. Now, they could have stopped and you were getting hot, or just like stopped, decided to jump in the water. I mean, we don't know. But to go out there, it took them that long. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if they only traveled for 3 miles from 4:31 to 5:25, you still have another 7 miles, right? They were able to go 7 miles from 5:25 to 5:54, or from 5:44, beginning at 5:25. I was like, I don't buy, like, that's weird to me. So I think that should be a question mark. Um, now, at 5:44, where we're getting this timestamp, is because at 5:44 you have to start going super slow because you're in like a no wake zone. And from 5:44 to 5:52, the boat ramp, the public boat ramp, is able to see. That's when the boat is going right by the public ramp. And what people have confused themselves with, or what I've heard people say, this boat doesn't just go to the boat launch area and unload everybody and puts it on the trailer and drives off. That's not what happened. Remember, this boat originated in the water. This boat was at a private dock right here. And where does this boat go? It goes back to the El Camino private dock. And so at between 5:44 and 5:52, where it's seen on the camera, that's the launch at the Bayou First. It's called Bayou First Launch. At 6:06, the boat is seen initially returning to its private dock. So that's your next time stamp is 6:06. And what it does is it then lets people off. And people are getting off. Then it returns back to the public launching area. But guess what, guys? Remember, it is July 4th. And if you've ever been boating on a holiday, the public launches at the boat ramps are packed. You are idling with your boat, okay, for a long time because it's you pay attention what you're supposed to do, and you're waiting your turn to bring your boat up, dock it for just a little bit while somebody goes and runs, gets the truck, pulls it back down. Well, first of all, then you have to get in the line because then you're backing up your trailer. Okay, you're backing up your trailer to then pull it out of the water. Well, what somebody realizes is when they came down, I'm not able to get right out of here because it was crowded. This is on camera. So then they go back to El Camino. So at 6:06, they leave. The boat leaves to this 23 footer leaves, thinking that I'm going to just go right back over to the launch ramp and off I'm going to go. Nope, I'm going to be waiting for a long time. So what they choose to do is, instead of waiting there, they choose to go back to the private dock, and they're at the private dock then from 6:06, 6:09 until 7:19. At 7:19, the boat. So I want you guys to think about something. If this boat originated in this water and it was behind this house, I have every reason to believe that this boat belongs to whoever house that is. That's like logical. And that normally when you have a house like this, it's on the water, you probably have another house. Just saying. People have their what you would call like a lake house, or like that's the way that we use the terminology here. We're going down to the lake. We're staying at so-and-so. It's their lake house, and then they have a different house. But this boat originated in the water and was occupying the private dock. Now, just to be clear, people that also have these private docks, they potentially could actually have more than their own boat there because you have a guest slip. Right? I'm not in Mississippi. I'm not there. I can't tell you what it is, but that's an option as well. But it did originate in the water beginning, that's where all of the kids left from. They didn't go and pick kids up from the public ramp to get onto the boat, which matters in my opinion. You'll see why it's going to matter. Because why are we taking the boat out of the water? That's going to require you. So what this told me is that nobody had a truck down at the public ramp with a trailer on it. Okay. So when they dropped the people off, when they got off originally at 6:06, that would have required somebody to go get their truck. Then once they get the truck that they have, go get the trailer to wherever to be able to pull this boat out of the water. And if those aren't at that house, wherever they may be, because some people have marinas that they keep their stuff at. If you're for a house like this, what I would expect is I don't expect your trailer to be at your house. I would expect your trailer to be at the marina where you store your boat throughout the year when it's not good weather. So what that means is that there is no there is no truck with a trailer that's waiting. You get why I'm saying that? Because it didn't originate coming there like that. That would be not what I'd be thinking. I own a boat. There's no way that I would be thinking that, hey, oh yeah, I have my truck and a trailer just waiting for me there. It doesn't make any sense. So it seems like you would have to get the truck and the trailer from wherever and not saying that it couldn't be here, but I know for sure it's not down at the public ramp. So when somebody would have gotten off that at 6:06 to get off at the private dock at El Camino here, that somebody is going to get yourself a truck and going to get the trailer. And let me tell you something, it's not just any trailer. You need the trailer that pulls this boat. So at 4:19, so this boat is seen on camera chilling at the dock. Now, anybody out there that's going to say, why would they take it out? It's not a big deal that they took out the boat because they got to work on it or whatever. Okay. You guys, it's July 4th. Let me tell you something about that. It's July 4th. Growing up, I grew up on the water. And when your little toys would break down, like jet skis, on a day that would be like a holiday, hey, your toy you're just unable to use it. So, hey, the 3-seater did something, so use the 2-seater, this happened. So, hey, we're out that, like our tube popped, or hey, it's the holiday. You're just going to be without that, but we're still just like hanging out. Like you would not be like, oh my God, I have to deal with this right now. Because you're dealing with the fact that you're all hanging out on the holiday, right? And there's nothing you can do about it. If in fact your boat, something is wrong with it. Usually you just take care of it. Hey, we brought it back in. But here they were able to get back to normal speed under its own power. Okay. And bring it on right back in. So then you would think that you brought it in, and you would just leave it alone, especially if you've been drinking out there. Okay. The last thing you want to be doing is anywhere near boat, driving it, and a ton of cops / Coast Guard, shit like that. So here for me, if the boat was fine to be on its own power after the 3 miles, because they traveled 3 miles from 4:31 to 5:25. After that, at 5:25 to 5:44, the boat was under its normal power. And then at 5:52, you see it by the public launch, like passing, coming down this channel area. And then at 6:06, the boat is initially returning back to its private dock. And then it leaves to go to the Fort Bayou boat launch. Saw that it was crowded. Leaves again to go back to the private dock. And then at 4:19 is going to now attempt to, we let the kind of traffic get out. Now we're going to go. This is what you need to know, though. When they leave the private dock at 419, they don't get the boat up and out of the water and onto the trailer until 7:47. So 7:19 p.m., 7:47 p.m. This would be the last thing in the world that I would ever be dealing with and doing on July 4th. Why aren't I using the house, the lake house right here that we have, and we're all hanging out? I'm just saying that I want you to think about these people leaving. I don't want you to be thinking about any more about like out in Horn Island. I want you to think about this is what you want to spend your time doing on July 4th. I want you to think about this logically. So at 7:19, again, the boat is moved from the private dock that's on El Camino, it's on camera, to then, like I said, it goes to the Fort Bayou boat launch at 7:47, and it is officially pulled from the water, loaded onto the trailer, and then taken to the residence, not over here at El Camino. It goes to the residence of, it's on Cardinal Lane in Biloxi, Mississippi. And that is where this truck, trailer, and boat, Cardinal Lane, that's where this truck, trailer, and boat stayed and was there. And we can put it there all the way until July 5th. Okay? Now, the title of this episode is July 3rd till July 5th at 12:26 p.m. So this boat, again, does not get out of the water and go over here to, El Camino. No, it's being taken out of the water, and it goes to a residence at Cardinal Lane. Now, again, the viral video that we've all seen where the girl like pans the area, that's 2:33 p.m. Okay. No one has said that they saw or interacted with Nolan Wells after 4 or 4:30. That's the same timestamp as when the boat is between the distress call and that the tow is being initiated. Okay. Now, again, I went back to the Fort Bayou boat launch cameras and I wanted to make sure. And so once again, yep, first pass by the cameras at 5:52. And it was like, oh God, look at this crap. This is awful. Then came back after they dropped off the passengers, got back to at 6:09, took another peek at it, and then later returned at 7:19. Then you're still waiting in some type of there's other people got out of the water at 7:47. And then you do the math on how long it would have taken you to get to where Cardinal Lane is. And it was something like 8:17 or 8:16 that it arrives then, and it stays there intact. That truck, that boat, that trailer until July 5th. Okay, now we're going to be introducing now a woman by the name of, because I wanted to look at the Snap locations and the Life 360 locations and how this came out. So there is a woman named, and I don't want to butcher the last, I think it's Tashima, and her last name is Hands, Hands. And that is the mother of Nolan's childhood friend, Javon Williams. That's the Williams kid that I told you earlier. He got on a different boat that went out there. Okay. I guess I'm guessing that's how she says it. So I'm just going to say Miss Hands used active Snapchat maps to pinpoint the exact house where a large group of teenagers had gathered. And this is because this is where it's questionable here. How did Nolan's mom and dad come to this, our son's missing? The timestamp that I can put in stone is the 817 trailer truck boat house. The next timestamp I can put in stone is 11 p.m. 11 p.m. And now this is the phone call that the parents want released. The 11 p.m. phone call is from one of the original kids, and I say the original 4, including Nolan. So one of these 3 kids calls the Coast Guard. Calls the Coast Guard. Now, I want you guys to think about some common sense stuff. In these initial reports, it was said that, they realized that, why did you guys realize that he was missing if you thought that he was with some girls and blah, blah, blah? Well, what would make sense to me is that you would have had to talk to one of the last boats coming in. Okay. But if you're not like at a marina or like a yacht club where like everybody like is coming in and you're meeting somewhere. So like, how did you determine that, hey, after we're out over there, everybody's going to what I would think is everybody's going to the El Camino house to hang out. Like that's where people would be hanging out. That's what would make sense to me. Right. That's the house that is the lake party house, like where everything would be happening. Like come back here. We're going to watch fireworks over the water. Right. Something like that. So what was said was that Nolan's truck, his vehicle was still there. And it was like they noticed that his vehicle was still there. Well, guess what, guys? His vehicle is at a house that would not be here at El Camino. It was at the other friend's house where he left it parked in the grass. So the only way that somebody would have anything to talk about his vehicle would have to be somebody from that household or whoever was at that house to see, his vehicle. Or it's somebody that has information that is not reliant upon logic of seeing, So at 11 p.m., Coast Guard is called. This is the call that the parents want released that has not been released. Because this call, the Coast Guards determined that this call didn't warrant it wasn't an emergency situation. And that's why the parents want to know what was said on this. Did you guys say, our friend didn't come back, but I don't know, he wasn't left stranded. He was just left with some girl. Like, he wasn't there by himself. We left with some girl. Why would the Coast Guard determine that this was not an emergency situation? But that's really, really important right there is that the 11 p.m. call has not been released, which is the Coast Guard call from the kid. Now, after that call at 11:30, family contacted Wells to say Nolan is still on the island stranded. 11:30 p.m. So the Coast Guard call, and this is why the family doesn't get it, why the Coast Guard does not get involved in this case until 12:32 on July 5th. So the 11 p.m. call to the Coast Guard, they want to know what was said. Then it's the 11:30. The family was contacted. Nobody went to them and handed them all of his belongings. Nothing like that happened. The family, though, was contacted, the Wells family, to say that Nolan is still on the island stranded. Now, Nolan's mom then looks at, she has Life 360 and her friend Hans has the Snap map, the active Snap map. Hans goes to the house where the snap map shows the phone to be. Why? And this is at like right around midnight. Why? Well, because the Life 360 says a different location. So, because of my familiarity with Life 360, Jennifer Drake always would talk about like, oh, I would know if he like, left his phone and then like, blah. Like she was just saying, because they have Life 360 following her husband, Brian Drake, shit like that. Well, I believe that there is a way that you can just flick off to stop sharing locations. And so what it's going to show is that your phone is still in a location. And when you go into someone's phone and you do that, it would then it would never show that the phone moved from wherever the last location is. So what his mom saw is that the Life 360, it was on land, and it's not that it was moving. It was just, it's on land and it's here. And then the snap map showed a different location. So what I think it could be potentially, signaling here is that somebody shut off that, to have that app continuing to, you can click it. I'm almost positive you can do it like that. But that would require you to get into the phone. Or that could just be a myth surrounding the whole. But at the end of the day, we know that this next happens. Miss Hands, who's Javon Williams' mother, who was Nolan Wells' really good friend growing up, she gets in the car and drives to the location of where the snap map of his phone was showing. And this was at a house to be known to having a party. There was supposed to be like a party here, a pool party. Now, she arrives at this house. Again, this is the exact location. It pinpoints to the exact house where a large group of teenagers had gathered. Upon her arrival, when she gets there, the house is completely dark, she says. And when the kids came to the door, everybody was sitting in the dark, watching and like just sitting around and looking at the TV. At the same time that she's doing this, Nolan's dad knows where Nolan was going to spend the night and where his vehicle would be. So his dad goes to where Nolan's, vehicle should be, because he knew that Nolan's truck was parked in the exact same spot. And he's now going up to that door. So Nolan's vehicle's at where it was and left on the grass, and the dad goes there, and this Hands woman goes to where the snap map is. When she gets there, she starts hearing, she is told multiple things. And, for her, the first thing is that a kid Wyatt. So that's the next emerging name. So we have Nolan Wells. We have Ashley Cole, the judge. Her stepson is named, his name is Warren. And then Nolan Wells' two friends, Javon Williams is Hans' son, and then the shepherd kid. So the next emerging name of this story is going to be a kid that's named Wyatt. And Wyatt said that the phone of Wells was locked in his truck. Okay. Was locked in his truck. Now, they're at wherever this, we don't know the pinpoint map as far as this Snapchat location, right? And then she's like, I know that it's here. I have the snap map. And then she starts saying this stuff. Then it is a quote unquote, a girl is going to go get it. A girl is going to go get it. And then she's like, well, how can a girl go get it if it's locked in the truck? She says, so like you have this woman pushing back, like, hey, what's going on? While this is happening, she notices that everyone is sitting in the dark. She's like, everyone's sitting in the dark. Why is everyone sitting in the dark? All the lights are off. And that people were just sitting all just around this television. Then 2 parents are going to talk to each other on speakerphone. One of the parents from one of the kids of that house, and then Nolan's mom. After this phone call, it still takes them 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Because they're still searching around. And she's like, and they were searching around in the dark. She's like, it was really bizarre. If you're going to be searching for something, maybe you guys can turn on the lights. Because she stayed at the door and it's just like all the lights were off. And so if they're searching for this phone, right, you're searching in the dark. And I was like, that's great. Like, great job, like pointing that out. So they're searching around in the dark for this phone. And then they finally, and she thought it was like a stall tactic. Okay. But they finally turn over to Miss Hands his phone and his wallet. His phone and his wallet. While that's happening, right, the dad goes to a different house where his truck was, goes up to the door, knocks on the door, and they said, hey, where's Nolan? Blah, blah, blah. I'm here to get his truck. Where's his keys? All this stuff. Like, oh, I don't know. We looked all over. We can't find it. We can't find it. And then finally, one of the kids that was at the house where the dad was said, hey, his keys are on the Xbox console. Xbox console. So that's how the family got his belongings back. His keys were not at the same house that his phone and wallet were at. So now, but think about this. The logic for me here is he left his truck there. Hey, I'm just going to leave my keys here because my truck is here because I'm going to be riding to go to this house on El Camino to get on a boat. Okay. I don't need my keys. I'd rather just leave them here. I don't want to lose them. You would do that every single day if you're going boating. The last thing you ever want to do is mess with your keys in boating. So that makes sense to me that his keys and his keys being at that house to me is not. So the myth that's out there is that his keys, wallet, and phone were all together on that boat. That's not true. Like, you cannot make that claim. Unless you have pictures of that he has his keys twirling them around, on that boat. But they acted like they didn't know where his keys were. But anyways, at the end of the day, the dad then gets his truck, takes his keys, and gets his truck out of there. Miss Hands here gets the phone, has the wallet, and goes back to Nolan Wells' parents' house. They all meet back over there. Now, this is why the case has, when the family got his phone, his phone was, now it's not been made public how the family got into the phone, because there's a couple different ways that could have happened. If you're, let's say that you buy your kid a cell phone and you could have like a different password that's for you. There's different ways that could actually happen. But if they knew his password, but they're able to get into his phone. So, but they've never made it publicly on how they did it, if they knew his passcode, if they got it from a passcode, hey, ask one of his friends that would have known it, or if there was a parental control on it that you could get into it. But anyways, they got into it, and she went to the Snapchat application. In the Snapchat application, there has a history section. There's the photos, like the media section of the. There's your messages. So go to your app. When they opened up the Snap app, it was deleted. And the big thing that was deleted, and why I believe it's just not July 4th that was deleted, is because she couldn't see like the pictures of like their family, like during like the holidays. It's like everything was deleted. Your history, then the media section. Okay. And the reason that I think no one's talking about how the family got in is because you want to keep that tight to the vest. Because if the family got in from a friend, because a friend knew his passcode, then that's how somebody could have got in to delete this. So this is where it all comes in on why this is. So the family gets this information immediately. Once they get the Snap, once they get the phone, and they get it into the phone. Now, on my last live, I said there can be a couple things you have to wait till we get and break it on down. And I'm going to tell you some of the things that cannot, and I'm eliminating. They interviewed people that were at the boat ramp, to saying, were these people trying to like, did anybody look like they were such in a hurry? Was anybody saying things like, we have to get back out there because we got to go back out? And did it seem like everybody was with them? Did they need it? Did you overhear anybody saying that they needed to get back out there because somebody was still stranded out there? And they said, no, they didn't hear anything like that. So what I said on my intro to this case, I said, if they were having boat problems, or if, more importantly, I said, if somebody needed to get taken off the island because he was acting up, like we heard the one kid talk about who's one of his friends. Hey, we got to get him out of here. So, and then I saw how far it is and who would want to just ride to just drop a kid off and then come back out. You know, who wants to do that? So I said that would be a reason that you would not go, because it's just doing that. We're not talking about departing at like 9 or 10 at night. The kids said, when I say like the kids, we don't know who's saying this, that it was that they were paying attention at least enough to see that, and they knew that everybody's returning, and that like, where's Nolan, right? Well, at first, that seems like that's legit, right? But when you hear that the Snapchat history on his phone has been deleted, that's where problems come in for then like boom. So it was never like a problem about the two different locations of like the Life 360 or the Snap. The issue is that the material is gone. And in order to delete it, this is where the lawyers come into play. The lawyers came into play because they said there is a couple ways that this could happen. You could get into it if you knew the code to get into his phone. But what I am sensing here is they aren't believing that that's how they did it. Now, let me explain what I mean. This is considered a death investigation. And so what the DA decided with Nolan's family is to do a joint investigation of this death investigation for the Snapchat stuff, they went ahead and issued a subpoena to be able to get the locate. It's a Snapchat server because there's layers that you can pull back, and you're going to be able to tell how this information was deleted. So they put in a preservation. They did everything to do with Nolan's phone, and it was specifically though it was just subpoena sent to Snapchat for a preservation. And since you did this right away, they have layers that they can do things regardless of any type of deletion, even if you had like on 24 hours, anything like that. And they also have the ability to track all the location points of this phone to then and include other people's Snapchats. You don't need their phones. If you know their Snapchat, like we're going to send out a subpoena for Snapchat for a couple different people's Snap history information. No different than they did in the Idaho 4 case. They didn't need your phone to do that with your Snap, to be able to go for someone's Snap. And so everything that I'm comprising of my timeline comes from the Fort Bayou boat launch cameras, the GPS of the boat, the cameras from the residential area around El Camino, which is right here that you're looking at. And there was no city operating marina dock cam at the there was no city operating marina dock cam at that location, which was where they took out the boat. They didn't have any camera there. They were going off of the GPS for that. But the cameras that were around the area, as in residentials, nests, rings, that type of thing, and then you're mixing that with like the GPS. And that's where I got the residential footage is being used to verify the head count and then when the boat docked at 6:06. They've conducted 60 interviews so far. While at the launch ramp, no one was saying that they needed to go back and get Nolan, that they left someone behind. The number is 7 at 5:44 p.m. at the private dock, and they were quickly dropped off. The other teenagers were all safely on land. So there was 7. They also say the word 7. And so Nolan would have made it 8. Now, I wanted more information on the boat to see if they could talk about an idling state. At 5:52 p.m., the boat was idling past the public boat ramp. Saw how crowded it was, then went back to the private dock until 7:19. That's where that's coming from. And I was like, wow, they were able to get to the private ramp the first time at 5:44, then drop people off. Then they're idling back on over at 5:52. Then they're like, this is going to be way too long of a wait. Okay. So then they go back over to the dock at 6:07, and then they leave at 7:19, and then they're on the trailer and leaving at 7:47. And I'm saying the boat, and the boat can't drive itself. So, but a bunch of people got off at 5:44, like that initial time over. And what you would expect to see here is just docking the boat there at the private dock where it came from. Because you're a teenager, your parents, okay? You're going to go in, you have to go in and talk to your parents and explain, hey, mom, dad, I don't know. I was able, it was started working on its own or whatever, but I don't know what happened. This is just what da da da. We just got towed in. Maybe they talked to them beforehand. I guess cell service sucks out there. But your parents are telling you what to do with that boat. There is no way that my son, when he becomes 18 years old or 17, because some of these kids are even under 18, that my son is doing anything with any of our stuff like that, power, fun toys, without my permission and without my knowing. It's not happening. Especially if it's just not happening. This is July 4th. Your parents tell you to stay away from the roads driving. You got to pay attention to drunk people driving boats. You're definitely not driving a boat drunk. Okay, none of that's just happening. And then we're all parents though, right? And we all understand we were kids once and people are going to do something, but you need to understand that somebody better be sober or just something horrible is going to happen. And maybe in that situation, maybe it's just better that, hey, you take the kids out there. Okay. They're going to go drink and do that type of shit, right? I'm going. I don't give a shit here. Go ahead, drink. Because none of y'all are drinking and driving. And your guys are going to go do it anyways. I'd rather know that I'm there and babysitting, I guess you could say. And now people could say, what are you talking about? Why would you ever allow that? It's like, allow what? I think personally you should be able to drink at 18 because if you can go fight for your country, you should be able to drink. If I can die for my country and all I have to say is that, yeah, I'm not going to be like, yeah, let's freaking do, cage rage. Okay. But you can clearly see out there that there was a ton of adults out there and those people know something. But the big thing that I saw that they know is that nobody's saying they saw Nolan after 4 or 4:30. And that's when everything's happening with this boat. And then you mix it in with when you get back, what is the movements of everybody? And why are we lying about where? I was expecting, like I said, Nolan's phone and his everything to be in the boat and to say, what are you talking about? But then I thought about something. Just like the mom was able to track Nolan, or the mom's friend was able to track Nolan with the Snapchat maps. Once I found out that Nolan's Snap Maps was on, again, unless it's a big lie, and then it was like the other kids that had their Snap Maps on. And so we went to that location and then we got them to, give us whatever. But those kids that were all with him, all they had to do was, and you're supposed to be so worried about where Nolan is, right? That you called the Coast Guard at 11. You would have looked at your own personal phone, looked at your Snap Map and saw unless you're not sharing locations with that person, I guess, but you don't even have to be sharing locations. You just have to be public. Because the lady that went to the house at where his phone was, she said there was all these kids' icons were all popping up at that house. Okay. And you could see it all popping up on the map. Have you guys ever known what the map looks like a Snap Map? So here for me, I'm using logic and I'm just like, these kids introducing footsteps, explore the world and keep track of where you've been when you've gotten to whenever you're not in ghost mode. So ghost mode is that you wouldn't pop up on a map. Here. Let's see if I can use. Let's see what this looks like if I use Hector. I mean, I think Snapchat is a freaking stalker app. Let's see. I'll come back to that in just a second. I also pumped in everything that I'm telling you guys. I pumped all of this stuff into a couple different AIs to see what was out there. Um, okay. This is a parent's worst nightmare. Hell yeah, it is. But so what made logical sense to me is that all these kids before whoever called at 9 or whoever called at 11 p.m., you would look at Snap and you would have never been worried because it would have shown. That's why I need to know what kid called. I need to know if one of the kids that called, all right, what house he was at. But you would look at Snapchat and you would see him on the map and where he's at. And it's like he's on land and it's boom at that house where they went, where Miss Hands went. At 9:56 again in the morning, the boat officially turns on its tracking system and departs El Camino. And that times up with the neighbor's cameras. Now, El Camino Real, where this is at, I said, how far is that to Cardinal Lane, Biloxi? Because from 7:47 to 8:16, that's the distance that the drive took to then. And I'm like, how do you know that? And I'm guessing a camera there at the house. And I was like, wow, okay, so from 7:19 p.m. to get back over to the boat launch area and to get it back out of the water at 7:47. And you're going to get that from the tracking system of the GPS. And then I started doing some more math. And I said, okay, if you drop me off out of my vehicle or out of the boat at 5:54 or 5:52, and I have to drive to, let's just say Cardinal, okay? It's going to take me, let's just say 30 minutes. So I get into my vehicle at 6. I'm able to get to the Cardinal at 6:30. Then I get my boat. I mean, not my boat, but I get my trailer in a truck. Or maybe I already have my truck, but I just have to go pick up this trailer. I'm just trying to do simple math here. So from 6 to 6:30, then I have to come back 6:30 to 7. And then what happened? Oh, wait, 7:19, loading back up on a boat to then take it over to the public ramp. And I'm like, all of this for what? This is July 4th. Don't you all want to fucking hang out by the water and just chill? Hey, the boat's out of commission, but we got fireworks coming. So I'm over here like, well, what needs to be answered is, and they're taking this vehicle or this boat to, I'm going to pull up this Cardinal. They get it out of the water, which, what a pain. I'm telling you what a pain in the ass that is. That is such a buzzkill. That is such like a, if like even buzzkill, that's just a vibe kill. Like, you would never do that. You wouldn't want to deal with it unless you thought your boat was sinking, like legit. Like if we let it sit in the water, and I'm like, well, no, they let it sit in the water from 6 until 7:19. I mean, did they have? And they didn't have to pump it back out or anything, and they were able to go back on over and get it out. And I'm like, it sounds like somebody wanted to get this boat out of the water. What person would say, leave me on this island, but keep my phone and wallet? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's because of if he thought, meaning Nolan, this is only two acceptable situations here. If Nolan thought they were coming back and they didn't come back, right? But once the kids thought that no, he's staying there and he's getting a different ride from someone else. I said, holy shit, now you have to throw that out. Now that can't even be an option. So yeah, no, you're not, you're taking your phone and your wallet 1,000. And so that's where I was just like, this isn't looking good. This isn't looking good. And then when you throw in the fact that somebody has, you all have Snap and you're all on your phone constantly, okay? And for me, I think that Snap was not deleted because of what was on it. I think that all of Snap was deleted because of what wasn't on it. When's the last time that he would have uploaded something? Just like when's the last time that anybody saw him? If there's a bunch of people around, and I get that music could be, but if he's, you guys saw how close everybody is. If somebody started to struggle to swim, you don't think that those people would have seen that right there? Then I thought to myself, okay, where's his body ending up? Right where they were. So I just did some math and I'm like, who would be doing all of this stuff? Driving all over, getting the boat, getting it, like you would. But what would appear to be that the boat was fine after, because they only needed to get towed for, why did you only need to get towed for 3 miles? And then if you only went 3 miles, right? How much more did you have? Then I'm like, I wonder if there's some, like, something just could also seem a little off with that to me. The timing. I would think that you have a lot longer of a ride. But then when you get the boat out, why do you want to take it? If you're needed to get fixed or whatever, you're leaving it right here at this house, or you're taking it to like your marina where your mechanic is. You're not, dude, the last thing that you want to do is be taking this boat and going. So here we're going to put in, do directions to that. Now let's take Cardinal Lane, Biloxi. Oh, look at this. So this is Cardinal Lane. Look at this. Cardinal Lane. Oh boy. Let's back out. Oh. Again, we'll go add a place mark. This is so interesting now. Now let's add next place. Next, we'll go with Holy shit. All of this stuff is reachable by water. Cardinal Lane and El Camino. Real. Well, there ain't no way you're going to have a house there and there. I don't think it's the same owner. I don't think that those two houses are owned by the same person. You can get all through those. That's the same channel. So like, let me show you if we put in now, we'll save that to the project. Now let's go to the Fort, oopsies. I'll show you where the Fort Bayou boat ramp is. So see all those long parking spots? It's for your trailer in your boat, in your truck. How does? Okay, there it is. Oh hell, that would take fucking forever. Okay, look at this shit. So these are the docks right here. See over here, that looks like a ruler. Those are all dock spots. But then what you have to do is you're all waiting. So like boats are just hanging out, waiting to then get on there. And then what happens is all these spots up here is where you're one, two. There's hardly any. Okay, this is definitely not a place where you come for the day and you're like, hey, let's just pull off here, putting our boat in for the day. I mean, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, these spots would be taken like at 8 a.m. You're not getting over here. But you would come in and be able to drop your boat in and then understand like you're not going to be able to be parked here because there's no parking. That's just so little of places. Like we have like so many more than that. So then, I mean, then you have to go put your truck somewhere with your trailer. Where's there a marina around there? Here we go. Bait shop. They have gas. Where are you getting gas around here? So that's right there, though. That makes sense. Boats are going in there. Usually, you're gonna be able to get gas like. Okay. Wow. north, east, southwest. So they're over here west. He's over here. Just so you know, there's no camera footage to show that any of these people like gassed up or anything either with like their boats. West tip. I'm about to check it. All right, so here now. Okay. So at 7:47 p.m., the vessel is officially pulled out of the water and loaded onto a boat trailer at the Fort Bayou boat launch. 7:47 to 8:16 p.m., the boat trailer is towed over land through the Biloxi area. 8:16 p.m., the vehicle towing the trailer arrives at the private home on Cardinal Lane. The boat remains parked on its trailer at this residence while Nolan Wells is still stranded on Horn Island. This residence belongs to the family of one of the teenage boys on the boat, locally identified as Warren. So the Cardinal house is the judges, the Cardinal Lane house. Okay. So over here, oh, where we at? Cardinal. Wow, somebody has already labeled that. Or did I do that? Card Lane 817. Did I do that? I think I already did that. I was like, wow, somebody's already doing this? I was like, woo, look out. Okay. So, okay, now, because the boat, Nolan's phone, and his wallet were all brought to this specific home while he was missing, it remains a primary point of interest for the family's independent legal team. Now, again, let me tell you, let me read you more of what I put together. Okay. All right, July 3rd, 2026, Wells has dinner with his family before leaving to spend the night with high school friends ahead of a holiday weekend. July 4th, the daytime, Wells travels by boat, and I was like, that's not good enough for me. And so that's when I wanted to break down what happened before that. So we spent the night with friends. Now at 3 p.m., according to everybody right now, Wells is last seen alive on the northwest tip of Horn Island. The friends say that he reportedly, now everybody that's involved in this has a lawyer. He reportedly tells his friends he will stay behind to talk to a girl and find another boat ride home. His friends return, his group returns to the mainland without him and without his, like just without him. July 4th, then at 11 p.m., and that's where I was like, oh, 11 p.m. is not good enough for me. So I was like, yeah, like that's the timeline that you're getting from like mainstream media or like whoever. I was like, this is not enough for me. We're gonna have to go get our groove on. So I said, okay. The names of the three specific high school friends who traveled on the boat directly with Nolan Wells to Horn Island have not been publicly released, but we went a little deeper. It's not been publicly released by the Jackson County Sheriff's Department or any mainstream media outlet. Why? Well, because it's an open active investigation, potentially minors. Now, I wanted to know why the friends thought that Nolan was missing at 11. Like, why did they think that? The friends contacted the U.S. Coast Guard, who did not get involved with this call, at 11 p.m. because that's when they realized Nolan Wells had never made it back to the mainland. And I'm like, that's not good enough. That was from the Mississippi Free Press. I said, this isn't good enough for me. The Mississippi Free Press said that the group of friends left Horn Island late in the afternoon because their boat was reportedly taking on water. They claimed Wells refused to ride back with them, stating he wanted to stay behind to talk to a girl and would find a ride back on another boat. The gap in time, because it was July 4th, it was common for holiday crowds to stay late on the water or remain on the island for evening fireworks. Now, all of these things are true. All of these things are true. The friends assumed Wells was safe with other people or on an alternate watercraft. Now, this is where that doesn't make sense with me. Before you would call the authorities at 11, just like think about the Riley Strand case. You look at Snap, you're trying to call this person. They're not calling you. They're not picking up. You would look at Snap Maps. Snap Maps, you would see, holy shit, it says that he's here. He says that he's at the house that we're all at. Huh? What? I want you guys to think about something here. Think about this. Tell me that you would not look at Snap Maps before you called the U.S. Coast Guard. There is no way I'm calling the fucking U.S. Coast Guard before I look at Snap Maps. Do you understand? If these people would have looked at Snap Maps, it would have shown that he was at a house party. Nobody would have thought he was missing. Okay. Now, then I said, either the family and friends are lying about what happened when they went to get these phones, but it doesn't sound that way to me. Because what would then have happened is this. That's why the family wants the phone call from the U.S. Coast Guard released. Okay? Because this is how it should sound. When you look at Snap Maps and you realize that, oh my God, it says that he's here with us, but then you can like zoom in and really precision locate. Oh my God, his phone's on our boat. Oh my God, his wallet and phone are right here. Oh fuck, shit. Hey, then you would hit up other friends. Hey, have you heard from, Nolan? You'd be calling around, and then you would be wondering, like, you would actually pick up the phone, and not that you could maybe get into it, but guess what happens on the outside of our phone? Guess what it tells us? 17 missed calls, 18 missed calls. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to know the passcode to see what could potentially be on the face of the phone. Okay. Now, no, we don't have, that's not actually true. We don't know how this all happened. But the issue that everyone's having here, that's the family. This is what my issue would be. Why you're calling around, hey, did he come back with you? Hey, did he come back with you? Hey, did he come back with you? So you're trying to figure this out, right? Well, you would have done all of this before you ever called it 11. But when you called the U.S. Coast Guard, why would the U.S. Coast Guard not get involved? That's what I wanted to know. Well, because the U.S. Coast Guard said that the way that it was described to them is that it wasn't that he was stranded out there. And that's why the family wants it to be released to hear how that call went out. And then they said it was more like a local thing. That's what the Coast Guard said. It wasn't, because the Coast Guard doesn't get involved until 12:26 on July 5th. So, but the gap in time is because it was the 4th of July. I said the gap in time. I said, okay, like let's think about this though. Then I said I want to know what these kids were doing. And it was really important for them to get this boat, which apparently was in the water and had no problem being there the night on July 3rd. It was in the water. Now when they get back, it was not that hey, everyone's coming back, but we're going to get this boat out of the water. And that, okay, now when the family supposedly is notified, which I personally believe that it was from the if I was trying to notify you that your kid was missing, why would I be hiding where your phone is and where this is and where that is? I would have been wiping down the snap way before I ever call and do all that crap, right? And it's also a very simple thing. Holy shit, we have his phone. Here it is. Here's this. He said he was staying back, but now you have to ask yourself this. Once we find out that those guys were not planning on returning and he was going to get a completely different ride with somebody else, there is no way that you're leaving with my phone. I have to get it to put it in a different boat. Unless he was under the assumption that they were coming back, right? And then did these people get too drunk? That they were partying, whatever? Nope, that's not what I see. I see that they get their boat right out of the water right away. And it's like, I get that your boat you don't think that it can be used or it's messed up, but to be getting your boat out of the water and to deal with all of that on July 4th, like, what are you talking about? That logically is absolute crap. I boat. There's no way you would ever do that shit. You would put it on that dock and you'd crank it up at your private dock over here. These places look like they have really nice homes and they probably have those nice little docks that get your boat out of the water, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? So I'm like, once the night drew close, we're closing the night down. And the friends confirmed that Wells had still not returned home or contacted anyone. They realized that Wells was actually stranded or missing. This prompted him to immediately call the U.S. Coast Guard. And this is reported by the Sun Herald. And I said that I don't know where the Sun Herald is getting this information from. Okay. But maybe we need to listen to the press conference to see where they got that from. Now, again, I have no idea why I'm not treating this as anything like a race issue. To me, this is things like this happen when you're drinking and boating. And I want to know more about the sandbar there, like what type of current we're dealing with. But what's interesting, what should be very, very interesting to everybody, is that this young man, in my opinion, would have had to have drowned, and all the things that he suffered would have had to have happened like at the same time that the boat is having its problems. Make sense? Like, what are the odds? Nobody, not a single person has come forward and saying that they have talked to and hung out with this young man after 3:30. That's a problem for me. 3:30, that's a problem. That's your time frame of the whole 401. Just what are the odds? Why are you saying that the phone is locked in the truck? Why are you not wanting to turn over the phone or the keys to the to the dad? Why are you search? Then you say you don't have it, right? Or at first, and then she's like, "Oh, I thought you guys didn't have it, or I thought it was locked in the truck." Now you're going to search in a dark house, and then we have to get people's parents on the phone to like make this happen. And then when they do get the phone, it's all wiped. And so this is what ends up happening because of all this, though. They agree that, like, based on statements from the friends and the findings of investigators, so the investigators come out and they say there was no plan for the friends to meet up with Nolan Wells later that evening. That was from the Sun Herald. Instead, the friends believe that they had completely handed over responsibility for his return trip to someone else. And that's where it's like, okay, well, the family's like, so he's just going to, okay, you guys are taking off. I'm not going to go with you guys. I got plenty of other people here. I'm cool, right? Well, did he just forget about his phone? And then as much as I would want to say yes to that, it's then the rest of the movements after with the other kids with that tells me that no, there's something weird there. But just because the other thing in here to remember is just because the kids that left, okay, those don't necessarily have to be the kids that anything was weird with or whatever. That's why I want to know who made the 11 o'clock call. Next is that I wanted to know more on. Again, I was like, how did the friends really, how did they realize that he was missing? Like, this is important for investigators. And what is out there in the Sun Herald and in the Central Oregon Daily, and I'm just like, you guys suck. Vehicle checks, they said. Wells had driven his own car to a friend's house or the boat launch before they set out. Well, you're completely wrong. Or, who says or? Nope. So I wrote the Central Oregon Daily and the Sun Herald and said they were fucking wrong. I was like, no, he parked his vehicle at his friend's in the grass. Again, misinformation coming from the Central Oregon Daily. When the friends returned to the mainland and later realized his vehicle was still parked there late into the evening, it signaled that he had never arrived. So this is what I believe. I believe that he parked his, again, remember, where Miss Hands and where the dad went are two different locations. And so there's three locations that are involved, because if the dad went to a location and that's where his son's truck was and the keys were, that's not the same location that where the phone was. And the phone was at the location where the boat and the trailer were. And then that brings us back to El Camino. And since he didn't drive to El Camino, that's how I'm getting, there's this trifecta. There's another address involved. And so that's what I'm saying is that the Cardinal Lane had the boat where the phone was and the wallet. The truck is at a different location than that. And that's where he spent the night on July 3rd. And then you have the El Camino, Cardinal, and then wherever his friend's house was that he spent the night at, but didn't drive his vehicle to go to El Camino. You only bring the phone back if you didn't do anything. Yeah, like I said, I don't think there's anything weird until you get to the Snapchat stuff. Until you also get to the what did you call the Coast Guard for? Why are you calling the Coast Guard 11? Who made that phone call? And if you're not planning on going back and picking him up, also you would be looking at the Snapchat maps to see that, okay, he's at where we're at, or he's at our friend's house. And why are parents needing to get involved with a phone call, like with needing to talk to each other? Very bizarre. I don't know if immediately, there could be a lot of things I would love to know about. He had been out here before, guys. He hung out with these kids before. He was on the boat with these kids before numerous times. So like, I don't think that this would have been something where it's like, oh my God, let's take this kid out there and like leave him at some like stranded island. Fuck that. No way. I don't believe that anybody, there was nothing here that was a planned like racial like targeting of if people are on that kick, they're so wrong. You're going back and forth between the kid drowning, okay, and nobody realizing, in which but the girl said, now this is what's nuts. The girl is claiming, Katie is claiming that he not only walked away, but she saw him get on the other boat. Like, it's like, not only was I done with that conversation, it was a hey and bye thing. It was not like this, and then he went and got on a different boat. Not only did she go away, or did he go away from her, he gets on another boat. That's her story. That's what she told the parents, though. And so when I'm going to narrow down that something had to have happened, whatever it is, if no one had talked to their friend or saw, and he has no phone calls out and they're not using his phone, and I would love to know the steps that are associated with that phone. There's just a bunch of things that you could still do that you can't manually get away. Well, let's go to the part where it should interest us as the digital people. Let's see. Okay, this is the friends' accounts. 3 p.m. to 4:30. The three friends on the primary boat claimed that they last saw Wells around 3. They stated that when their boat began taking on water and they prepared to leave the island, and that was at 4:31. Wells voluntarily chose to stay behind, specifically to continue hanging out and talking with this young woman, WLOX, in quotes. And I'm like, dude, what? Like, can you be like... Javon Williams' account at 4 p.m. So he's a separate friend that was not part of the original 3 plus Nolan. Javon Williams, who was on the island via a different boat, stated to reporters that he last saw Wells shortly after 4 p.m. Well, shortly after 4 p.m., that's after the phone call. That would have been like, hey, our boat's taking on water. So you'd be able to kind of square his account up with like, well, where was he when you saw him? And Wells was actively talking to a girl. And that's bombshell to me. I'm telling you this. There's no way that the girl is on some boat and there's Mayday, Mayday basically going on, okay? So just after 4. And I say this like, does this kid know what truly time it was? Is he just ballparking 4? But if he's talking to the girl at 4, the call had already come in, and but then this girl is like, yeah, we were talking, and then he went back to get on a boat, and I saw him, like, he left and he got on a boat. So it's like, okay. Now, another friend that was present that day confirmed that Wells had met the young woman earlier in the morning, and he genuinely liked her, which is why he allegedly wanted to stay. That doesn't even, that's the kid that we see he's talking about. Like, that's not his voice. It's my voice type of thing. That's from CNN. Now, what the young woman told the family, according to Wells's family, this is from, this is Ben Crump wanted to put this out. He said the young woman, identified by the name of Katie, reached out to Wells's mother and contradicted the friends' timeline. She said it was a hey and bye interaction. The young woman told Wells's mother that her interaction with Nolan was brief. Describe it as just like a quick hey and a bye situation, rather than an extended like date or a reason to remain stranded on an island. I cannot possibly fathom and think that you don't. I would never think to myself, I'm just going to grab a ride with somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I would need to know how I'm getting back. But that was Ben Crump. He told that to People magazine. The departure discrepancy, according to the attorney, Ben, the young woman claimed that she actually saw Wells walk toward and get back on the boat. And then I said, okay, so they're on land talking. Because Jesus Christ isn't out there walking on water. So she saw Wells walk toward and get back on the boat. And then I was like, actually, you could be walking over because it's so not that, deep. So I was like, okay. Then I back it all the way up, and I'm like, nope, he doesn't necessarily have to just be on the land and no water. He could just be walking through, which would mean that she last saw him. They weren't in the deep water. He's able to walk. He's walking in water. That's her account. I would want to ask her things like, well, did he try to get your snap? You know what I mean? Did he try to get your number? Did you take his number? Did you guys already know each other? Did you have a boyfriend there? Did you just break up with somebody? Who was she there with? Because of this massive contradiction, which is huge, like she's like, no, this is like a hey and a bye thing, and boom. And if it was such a small window, then it also tells me that during that small window, that's when the one friend literally could have only seen that happen. Yeah, I'm starting to lean on that too, and that's why I want to see what's going to come back on that. So because of this massive contradiction, where the friends claim Wells stayed on the island for the girl, but the girl claims that she saw him leave on the boat. Wait, then ABC comes in from Fresno, ABC 30 Fresno says, now it was saw Wells walk toward and get on the boat. Now we have ABC 30 Fresno saying the girl claims that she saw him leave on the boat. The family's legal team has called the narrative completely implausible. And I'm over here like, wait, leave and get on are totally two different things. That boat or a different boat, that she thought, it doesn't matter to me what boat at that point. Was that boat physically going away when you saw it and he was on it? Okay. Now what could happen here? Because now this could potentially start to make more sense. where they were located. So let's go back out to here. So we got over here. And let's zoom in. Now, body found, I had it as right over here. I should move my little thing. Can I drag it? It's like here. And where this would be considered, now right here, see this right here, this area? I want to know why it looks like this. See that? That's going to be this is west, the west tip. So what is the pattern? So if this is your west tip, that's how I'm seeing it. And so it's like, and I have it as body found over here. Now, I can look back again at the different, that's just what I have. Okay, hold on. Okay, so then this is what happens. Because of this massive contradiction now, and because of the snap being completely wiped, there became a ton of a ton of death threats started coming out in this case. The FBI got involved to do a digital review of the evidence. And I also want to see if we could find anybody who could say that the Katie girl saw Nolan get on a boat. Like, what friends was he with? You know, what do you remember the boat? Remember, I would say like what color, but no, I'm gonna be white. The public statements released by the family and the attorney, by the way, Ben Crump, do not specifically give an exact time, because you're asking everybody what time things are happening. What time did Katie say that this convo happened? And so nowhere out there is anybody able to quote a time that Katie is giving, by the way. Instead, her involvement with the case is strictly focusing on this, hey, the action part. I don't know what time, action. He was taking and doing, and I had already talked to him, and I saw him, walk off, get on another boat, and now, according to ABC, leave. Katie told Nolan's mother that Nolan explicitly said that he was going to get on the boat back home with his friends. She then stated that she physically saw him walk over and board the boat with them. And I said, whoa. These are bombshells. Like, wait, what? Yes, that has come out. Those in quotes. While she did not provide a public clock, she said, like a timeline, she called it a clock, her account aligns with the time frame when the Friends' boat actually left the island. Officially unsealed GPS records confirmed that the Friends' boat departed Horn Island at 4:31 p.m. Therefore, if her account is accurate, she would have witnessed him boarding around that 4:30 p.m. window. And that's from the Clarion Ledger, where I got that information. We were scouring all things. Then, because the friends claim that Nolan refused to leave with them at 4:31, and Katie claims that she saw him actively get on the exact, she said, get on that exact boat. Now, that's how the lawyers are describing it. That Ben and the family pressured authorities to treat her statement as a critical piece of evidence against the Friends' timeline. I said, what time did this distressed call come out to, hey, we need help? That emergency distress call made by the boat operators occurred at approximately 4. The audio originally obtained by NBC News via a public records request captures one of Nolan's friends contacting the private commercial towing company, Sea Tow, SEA. The nature of the emergency at 4 was the caller stated the vessel's pump has failed and that they are taking on water at the west tip of Horn Island. That's why in my timeline, it's really important that west tip, that is the west tip. Just the tip. So right here, west tip. You know what we'll add as well? We'll add right here 2:33 p.m. meta viral. Okay. The caller tells dispatchers, hey, we're at the west tip of Horn and our pump stopped working. We're going. We're sinking. Can you all please come? I want to get this boat unsank and towed back. End quote. NBC News. Now, I have no idea what took place between 4 and 4:30. But like I said, what are the odds? What are the odds? What are the odds? I think it's safe to say that someone's lying. That's all I have to say is someone's lying. Now, the head count, this confirmed head count, when the dispatcher asks if everyone on board is healthy, the caller responds, yeah, everybody's on board. Everybody's on board. Meaning like no one's overboard. That's just a really weird thing to say. Yeah, everyone's on board. The caller also notes that there are like 7 people. There are like 7 people on the vessel at the time. Yeah, there's like 7 people. Law enforcement, KTAL News, has come out and said that law enforcement has explicitly stated that Nolan Wells was not on the boat when the distress call was made at 4. And I'm like, where? I'm like, where are they getting that from? How could you say that? That's some wild shit. Can you believe that law enforcement came out and said that? Well, it's because the kid said, yeah, when we called that, no, he wasn't on our boat. Oh. All I'll say is I just don't think you can, like, why don't you wait and see what the phone records say, right? And when I mean the phone records, I'm saying the device, period. So then I said, well, give me these. I want all the audio and all the GPS, everything. And so the data was compiled by Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, and it correlates the 4 p.m. call with the boat's physical movements. And that was obtained by NBC News. 4:31 p.m. after waiting for assistance following the 4 p.m. call, the boat officially departs the west tip of Horn Island while being towed. And based off of the GPS, 4:31 to 5:25, the boat is towed slowly for nearly 3 miles. So, I mean, we're looking now. 5:25, the boat resumes normal speed under its own power, and then at 5:44, the boat returns to the mainland dock. According to GPS data released by the Mississippi Department, the boat was taken entirely out of the water later that evening. And I said, wait a second. That interests me. The tracking records outlined the following. 6:06 p.m., the boat initially returns to its original private departure dock. That's the private dock. And then I wanted to make sure that, okay, that's the same dock that it left at 9:56, right? Or can that be potential? Like at 7:19, the boat is moved from the private dock to the Fort Bayou boat launch. And I said, I doubt it. And so WLOX, I said, you guys are wrong, because there was a trip that happened before it. And how I was able to say that they were wrong with that is because I have the camera timestamps of the nests and the rings from the people that live around there. I said, who is this Ashley? Who's Judge Ashley Cole? You know, and that's her stepson was one of the 3 teenagers who operated the primary vessel and left the island without Wells, is Judge Cole's stepson. But I was like, one of the 3 teenagers who operated the primary vessel and left. What are you talking about? 7 people left. 8 if Wells is on that boat. But the original crew of 3 plus Wells was, like I said, in the morning. And that's why I was like, well, can we say that how many people went out on the boat? Remember, the one kid was like, I couldn't get on the boat that Wells was on because it was too full. And so I had to take it. Have you guys seen that interview? So let me go over here and show you this latest TMZ.
Nolan Wells case has been, video is shot before that, right, so it is interesting.
Around 2:45-ish, right. And I think a couple things to know on this island that we know people that are in the water, they're like the water is coming up above,
right there,
of their shoulders. So we know that it was very much a high tide out there.
Well, where they're at here. Right there.
You know, notable because
look at that boat that he's on.
People are
saying he drowned, and
you would be swimming. It's deep enough that you can swim there. It's not like you're just standing in ankle deep water.
Yes. Right. Also,
what do you guys think? I think it's him. Do you guys think it's him? I think that kid right there on that boat is him.
It appears, if this is in fact Nolan and he is on the friend's boat, it looks like there's adults on the boat.
Yes, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Which also paints a different picture. You are imagining originally there's just these teenagers, they're going out there and partying, but you would assume if there's adults there, maybe it's a little bit more controlled. There's supervision.
I mean, what we've...
Yeah, that's a nice ass boat.
Come to learn is that
boat has a name on it too.
There's so many people who are out there, especially on 4th of July. It's not...
I wish TMZ wouldn't have put their logo like that.
Just KO police. I would presume they're certainly trying to figure that out. stayed there
And
overnight with someone else.
we have been talking about how this island, you know, there's no stores.
But the family at least has some initial results that they'll be announcing tomorrow.
Hey, it's Maya Lamise from South Carolina. And my take on the Nolan Wells case is that it just brings a lot of questions, that video, because it's showing us that there were adults there. And if there were adults there, why would you be okay with leaving a child? Well, he's 18, but leaving somebody there overnight with no cell phone. You didn't get in contact with his parents to let them know that he was staying. It just brings up so many more questions. And like the guy who flew out that y'all just shown, he said that.
No, like, I mean, I think the first question needs to be like, that's great if he wanted to say what time, but what time is the video? What time is that video?
Trunks. So this person who shot their photos, we've all seen that photo of him sitting with the friends, and he is wearing the same colored blue trunks. So this person who shot this video, obviously, like most people, I think, who are on Horn Island, going through their photos and their videos to see if there's anything, and they saw that image. Now, unfortunately, the individual there who's bending over on the back of a boat does not stand up at a point where we get to see his face. But the person who shot this thought this might be something, and because it was shot at a time before the last known time, up to this point, what we've heard was that Nolan's friends left the island at 4:30, and that's the last that anyone has said that they remember seeing him, that they've at least talked about. This video is shot before that,
Right,
so it
around
is interesting.
2:45-ish.
Right.
And I think a couple things to note in this video.
Okay, 2:45-ish. 2:45-ish. Okay, that's all. I just wanted you guys to see that little snippet. Now, the next video I want to show you is let's see. Do-do-do-do. What? I want to see who. Okay. Okay, ready?
Sam here, and people are saying, I don't know if there's an internet rumor or if there's any truth to this, but people are saying that Katie McCormick's cousin is on the run. Now, there's videos going around where people have allegedly seen in one of the videos where they think you can see Nolan on the back of.
Well, does that say I know it says daddy. What does that say? Does that say Lil Daddy? Lil Daddy. Look at that. Lil Daddy. I'm gonna name my boat Lil Daddy. Like Little John. Lil Daddy. Let me just tell you that there is no way I'm hanging out on a boat that says Lil Daddy, all right? Lil Daddy. What is that? My boat is this is mine.
A boat that appears to say Lil Daddy or Big Daddy or Mac Daddy. We're not sure. We're also not sure if this is allegedly Katie's dad on that boat. But people are now saying that her cousin is on the run. Can anybody validate this reporting? I just wanted to let you guys know. Again, in a lot of what we do, it's hard to find the truth, but I think it's like a pinball. If you knock it around a little bit, you might hit the right point. You know, it's like any investigation.
And then I see Nolan Xavier Wells, Katie's cousin on the run, allegedly. His name is Secret Service Sam.
They might go after a lead, and that lead might lead to nothing, but then of the world.
Was Secret Service Sam putting out some information that the cousin of Katie McCormick, the alleged white girl who was the last one to see Nolan Wells alive on the island, a cousin of hers is on the run. Now, a lot of people are putting out information that Nolan Wells possibly was on the boat with her father. Now, I'm going to show you this picture right here. I don't know if you've seen it, but this is a picture of Nolan Wells allegedly walking on the beach with Katie McCormick, which lets us know that there was some time spent with the two. It wasn't just them meeting on the tip of an island and saying hey and bye when nobody else was around. So that's one, because if he was with Katie and he goes somewhere else, everybody on that island, that crowded island with a small proximity, would know where he went. But there's some more information as well that once again says that Nolan got on the boat with Katie and her father. And if that is the case, then where are they at in the investigation? Just listen to my brother Willie D.
Where the fuck does Katie live? How about that? Katie McCormick, where you live?
I'll break some of the photos down and then I'll be back with some more commentary.
Yeah.
Photos. And you tell me what you see, fam. Let's start with the video. This video is allegedly of Nolan Wells on an unidentified boat. Now, I said that the boat was unidentified because we can't quite make out exactly what it is, but Secret Service Sam tried to do the best that he could. This is the picture that was taken from the video, and he enhanced it and came up with this. That says, "Little Daddy." Now, I believe it was the guy who runs the page, We Are Human Too, who said he don't believe that it says little or Lil Daddy, but the daddy part I don't think is disputable, but the first part of it is in question. Now, what's the significance of this boat? Well, word on the street is that boat belongs to this man. Now, who is this man? Allegedly, this man is the father of the so-called girl, the mystery girl that Nolan was hanging out with. Word on the street is this guy is this guy.
Yeah.
This is Katie's father. Now, what's the significance? Well, if our guy, Nolan, is indeed on this boat, if this is the same boat, then Katie got some explaining to do, because Katie, let her tell it, said she briefly spoke to Nolan, and then he took off and started about his business to hanging out with his buddies, who I believe actually killed him. Also, if that...
Wait, who? Who did what? Hold on.
Let her tell it, said she briefly spoke to Nolan, and then he took off and started about his business to hanging out with his buddies, who I believe actually killed him. Also, if that is indeed Nolan on that boat, then that could change the timeline. Once again, that's him. Now,
Well, no. What do you mean? Maybe. That's 243. 232 to 243. Let's see.
here's the deal, fam. This guy once he got wind of people talking about him on the internet and pointing him out as perhaps having some type of association to Nolan's death, he vanished. Poof. He vanished. He just totally disappeared. Went dark. You know, the internet is just the internet.
All right, and so there you see, you know, my brother Willie D breaking down the photos and the information that is coming out. Apparently, Nolan was possibly, allegedly, on the boat with Katie and her father, and now her father has mysteriously, you know, disappeared from social media, just like the judge does. And also as well, you saw the first video where the brother Secret Sam says, well, her cousin has also went on the run. And so if he was on the boat with these individuals and next thing you know, he comes up missing, and the father, the owner of the boat, and the cousin of the owner of the boat all of a sudden gets missing, then definitely that's some suspicious behavior. And also it was said, you know, through someone who talked with somebody who was allegedly from Ocean Springs, that the father of Katie McCormick is some sort of high official, maybe with the FBI, you saw him with the uniform, or maybe with the prosecutor's office. I don't know, but allegedly he is somebody with some authority there.
Allegedly Katie's dad on that boat. But people are now saying this is allegedly Katie's dad on that boat. I'm not sure if this is allegedly Katie's dad on
Oh, shit.
that boat. But people are now saying that her cousin is on the run. Can anybody validate this reporting? I just wanted to let you guys know. Again, in a lot of what we do, it's hard to find the truth, but I think it's like a pinball. If you knock it around a little bit, you might hit the right point. You know, it's like any investigation, they might go after a lead and that lead might lead to nothing. But if in fact her cousin is on the
that's one, because if he was with Katie and he goes somewhere else, everybody on that island, that crowded out, everybody else was around. So it lets us know that there was some time spent with the two. It wasn't just them meeting on the tip of an island and saying hey and bye. And
Okay. What do you guys think? What do you think about this? Now, oh, wait, what I want to do? One more. There was just one more. One more time. Okay. Breaking. New Horn Island video shows Nolan Wells just 2 hours before friends left without him. Finally, Nolan Wells' autopsy results are complete. We're going to be hearing some stuff tomorrow. Where's the one that has? Where's this? Okay.
The governor hadn't talked to the sheriff about the investigation, even though he knows him very well. Even though he's the highest authority for the state, even though the investigation involves his own residence and has gained international attention, saying he had full confidence the sheriff would do his job. There was no mention of seeking justice, no recognition of the family's loss, just that they'll do what taxpayers already pay them to do. You know what he didn't say? That this is a tragedy. No acknowledgement of the grief this loss has caused. He didn't offer condolences to the Wells-Wosley family or the community that loves them, even though they're the very people he was elected to serve. It's giving PR damage control. It's certainly not giving empathy, sympathy, or really anything to the family. And if this is how the highest elected official in the state responds, what?
Okay. So there's a little touch of all the stuff that's, yeah. There's your political piece. Now going back over here, I want to read one last part that it was important for us to touch on, which is what can we find and what are they going to do about this Snapchat stuff? Okay. It was because the primary witnesses are connected to high-ranking local official, the Wells family and civil rights leaders. That's why they said, hey, we need some independency here, okay? And we want some independent federal review. And so that's how that happened, which makes sense. I can see that, you know. Here we go. So the Guardian got it wrong, and I let them know as well. His phone, his keys were also found inside the boat, meaning he had no access to his vehicle or home. I wrote them, I said, that's wrong. And okay. On July 5th, the friends meet with Nolan's parents and return his personal belongings, including his cell phone, wallet, and keys. CNN. I said, that's wrong. That's not how that happened. But anyways, in the early morning hours of July 5th, Christine publicly confirms that she and her husband already have physical possession of Nolan's phone and are using it to look for clues while heading out to the island to search. She put that on social media. Once they find his body, Jackson takes over. That's when they go ahead and they take the phone from the parents to log it in as evidence. So that doesn't happen until July 6th. Now, when the Jackson County Sheriff's Department initially took over the missing person case on July 5th, they publicly confirmed that Nolan's wallet, phone, and keys remained on the vessel when it left Horn Island. Again, that's a false report. That was because in early news reports, this detail was summarized as his belongings were found on the boat. Again, I totally dismantled that. That is not how that happened. What actually happened is that left on the boat was Nolan's items stayed inside the boat when the friends left Horn at 4:31. When the boat was trailered over to the land, the owner's residence that evening, the teenagers brought Nolan's keys, wallet, and phone inside the house. Again, that is not true. But now we know that the boat is owned by the people that live on Cardinal Lane. So now that would be important to know, like, hey, get the boat out of there because that's not even our slip. Okay. But to be doing it when they did it, then the parents took physical possession of the phone and keys first. They then turned the cell phone over to law enforcement so the district attorney's office and the FBI could conduct a forensic scan, because the family only did it with this assurance. And so it's important to understand that while the items they were originally on the boat, it was actually Nolan's family who tracked down and retrieved them from the friends' homes before the sheriff formally logged them into evidence. So this was no like, here we're coming to bring you stuff. That's not how that happened at all. I said, what was the date and timestamp of when the sheriffs seized the boat? Well, the Jackson County Sheriff's Department took over the investigation and assumed control of the tracking and case data on July 5th. And I said, no, that's not going to be good enough. While the exact hour detectives physically took custody of the watercraft was from Biloxi residents, hasn't been publicized. But we do have the Mississippi Department of Resources GPS noted that the vessel's recorded GPS positioning logs concluded on July 5th. This drop in tracking markers corresponds directly with the exact date the Sheriff's Department formally took over as the lead investigative agency on the case. Because the Snapchat map specifically pinned the phone to the house where the friends who went to the island were gathering, a family friend named Tashima Hands drove straight to that address. When she arrived, she confirmed a large group of people were inside and successfully retrieved Nolan's phone and wallet. Nolan's mom and her sister were the ones that finally opened the phone to look at its actual Snapchat application. They discovered a second disturbing contradiction, which was both of his active Snapchat accounts. He had two of them. Both of them were completely empty. Nolan was known to constantly record and post videos to his Snapchat stories whenever he went out. However, his family noted that absolutely no photos, videos, or messages remained from July 4th, an absence of data that occurred well before the app's standard 24-hour automatic expiration window. This had led the family and attorney Ben Crump to publicly accuse individuals of manually scrubbing his social media history. The FBI is currently using server-level subpoenas to recover the deleted geolocation tags and messages. Late that night, after Nolan failed to return from Horn Island, his mother noticed that her tracking apps showed different locations. Tashima Hands, the mother of Nolan's childhood friend Javon Williams, used the active Snapchat map to pinpoint the exact house where a large group of teenagers had gathered. Hands drove to that home late on July 4th. When she arrived, the teenagers initially resisted giving up the phone until one of their parents intervened over a speakerphone call. It took approximately 15 minutes of tense back and forth before Nolan's phone and wallet were successfully handed over to her. The retrieval of those belongings actually occurred just after midnight on July 5th. Because I wanted to know if the call came to the at 11. So at 11 p.m., one of the friends on the boat makes the initial call to the U.S. Coast Guard to report Nolan missing. Shortly after this call, the friends they tell Nolan that he is still on the island. They tell his family that he is still on the island. We need to find out who said that. We need to find out who said that. I called this family to say that he's still on the island. They're like, what? It doesn't make any sense. Shortly after that call, that's when they were looking at the different location tracking apps. this is when they noticed that big, massive discrepancy. Her tracking software shows the phone is on land, but mutual friends look at Snapchat and see if it pinned to a specific house where a teenage pool party is taking place. And I'm like, well, we can go just look at what houses have the pools at them. But if there's a teenage pool party that's taking place, then why is everybody inside, lights are off, sitting around where the TV is in the dark? This hands woman confronts the teenagers and navigates a 15-minute, she said there was a 15-minute standoff for the phone around the same post midnight window. And this is when I was like, I want to know what Nolan's dad was doing. And that's when Nolan's dad drives to a completely separate house where Nolan had left his truck before the boat trip. And that's where he found his keys. He is initially lied to by the teenagers there who claim they cannot find the keys before another boy finally admits they are sitting on top of an Xbox console. Because the 11 p.m. Coast Guard call happened before the family fully realized that the teenagers had returned to land with Nolan's physical phone and wallet, the exact timeline remains a central focus for attorney Ben Crump, because we want to know why are you calling the Coast Guard at 11 and what did you say? And the Coast Guard won't release it. The exact details of what the friend said during the 11 p.m. call have not been publicly released by authorities. Because of the death of Nolan Wells remaining an active and open investigation, the U.S. Coast Guard and the Jackson County Sheriff's Department have withheld the audio recordings and official transcripts of that specific conversation. However, official statements from the Coast Guard and the Sheriff's Office have revealed critical details about how the agency handled the information. The friend that reported Nolan missing, the U.S. Coast Guard Heartland District, confirmed that a friend who had been on the boat called them at approximately 11 p.m. to report that Nolan Wells had not returned from Horn Island. The friend called because he realized Nolan was still missing long after the holiday water festivities had wrapped up. The Coast Guard determined no action was needed. The most controversial revelation from the timeline is that the Coast Guard stated the initial 11 p.m. call did not require Coast Guard assistance because they deemed the call did not necessitate an immediate emergency response. The Coast Guard did not launch rescue boats or helicopters into the water that night. Because of the way that the information was relayed by the caller, that's how it said. Because of the way the information was relayed by the caller, the Coast Guard treated the incident as a local matter rather than an active emergency. Official records show that a multi-agency search involving the Coast Guard was not officially requested or initiated until 12:26 p.m. the next day, more than 13 hours after the friend's initial phone call. So now a new emerging thing that I'm looking at is, what did the family do from, basically like 12 a.m. or like 1 a.m., to 12 p.m.? But the Wells family and civil rights leaders have raised serious questions regarding this call. They want to know exactly how the friend described the situation to the dispatcher. They question if the friend minimized the danger by telling the Coast Guard that Nolan intentionally stayed behind with a girl, which potentially caused the dispatcher to dismiss the severity of an 18-year-old being left stranded on a remote barrier island without his phone, wallet. During an interview on CNN with Laura Coates, Hands described the highly unusual behavior of the teenagers when she knocked on the door. It's in the truck. When Hans demanded the phone, a teenager identified as Wyatt initially told her that Nolan's phone wasn't even inside the house. He claimed it was locked inside his truck. A girl is going to get it was the next excuse. Immediately after saying it was in the truck, they changed the story slightly, telling Hans that a young woman who was at the house was currently on her way out to the vehicle to fetch it for her. The sitting in the dark discrepancy. Hans noted that despite the Snapchat map showing a massive crowd gathered at the house, when she looked inside, the teenagers were all sitting together watching television with all of the lights turned completely off. The 15-minute pushback. The teenagers actively resisted handing the device over to Hans. The standoff only ended after one of the teenagers' mothers got on a speakerphone call with Nolan's mother. Once the parents intervened, it still took the teenagers about 15 minutes of searching around in the dark before they finally produced the phone and handed it out the door. She didn't go in the house. Because the teenagers claimed that they had to search for 15 minutes for a phone that they just claimed was out in a truck, the family treats this interaction as proof that the boys were actively trying to hide the device or buy time. Now, I will say this. If I have no idea that I have I should be thinking that I don't have your phone. What are you talking about? I don't have Nolan's phone. Why the fuck would I think that I have it? Let's just reverse things up. If she came over there maybe hot-headed a little bit, okay? And these kids are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But according to her, this is what they said though. It wasn't said we don't have his fucking phone. Why would we have his phone? Because his phone should have just been in the boat. Okay? Things can happen when you're drinking and so you go off or whatever. All I'm trying to say is what I would expect is Nolan to realize that his phone, he does not have it. And you would then say to one of the other friends that you're with, hey, I need you to call my phone so that I can tell them that they have my phone. That's what I would expect Nolan to do. So if he was still coherent, alive with it, you can expect that a teenager is going to tell and ask one of the people that he's hanging out with, little daddy, can I borrow your phone really quick so I can call my phone or one of I don't even know these kids' phone numbers because I just save it, but I know my number. So let me call my phone. And you would be attempting to call your phone a bunch of times, I would think. And so if that's not present on the phone as a bunch of missed calls, I would think that's very strange. And that would mean that no one wasn't able to call. But if he didn't have cell phone service out there, the other people, I don't know. I don't know. Then he couldn't. But this is the family was what the hell? And remember his keys though. I don't think the keys is a big deal that they're at the other property where his truck was. I would have left my keys there too. Especially, I didn't drive my truck to the house over here where we're jumping on the boat. So I'm leaving my keys here where my truck is. I think that's perfectly fine. So I just am able to add to my notes here that yes, Hans 1000%, because I have this address. Okay. Yes, the house that Hans drove to was the exact same residence where the boat was trailered out of the water, which is important. So that's even I'm just telling you guys, that's crazy for me. There is no way I'm calling the fucking U.S. Coast Guard without checking snap maps of like all of our friends to see who has Nolan on Snap, or like even if you're not friends with them, if they're sharing it, whoever, you can like zoom in and you can like see people. It just depends on how you have your Snap. But I'm telling you, those people were friends on Snap. And so therefore, then you could like zoom in on your map and you would be able to see, okay, and then you can hit that person and you can see where their location is, where their last location is. And those kids would have seen that the last location, right? Hang tight though, is at the house. It's like at the house. Oh, dude, maybe he left his fucking phone in the like. So I want to play devil's advocate on both ways. So maybe the story is that we were calling around, like we were all looking around our phones, and that's what made us call the U.S. Coast Guard. And then so what they told the U.S. Coast Guard is we have his phone. He was waiting there with some girl or whatever, but like no one can get in touch with him now, so we don't know if he's stranded out there or what, you know? So you have to play that part of it too. But then when the family claims that the Snapchat was wiped, so official GPS logs from the Mississippi Department confirm that this identical residence located on Cardinal Lane in Biloxi was where the boat had been towed over land and parked on a trailer earlier that evening, because his phone and his wallet and the primary boat all ended up at the exact same private residence while Nolan was still left on the island. It remains a focal point. That's what they're trying to figure out, is like, how would this happen? If he was going to stay back, but you guys, that's that other part. He would have gotten his phone and been like, okay, if I'm hanging back, give me my phone. Like, why would he stay without his phone? And then it's like, dude, you don't realize it. You're like, oh shit. So I can see that he wouldn't have he would have realized it, but it was too late because they were already gone, right? So like there is still some there, and then it all just keeps coming back to like, we're gonna have to find out what happened on the Snap shit. I will say that they didn't try to move his vehicle. They didn't try to like make it seem like he didn't come. You know what I mean? Like these kids didn't, you know, his keys in his truck. And if I could also see myself saying like, I don't know where his keys are. I mean, I could look around but according to the dad, maybe he just looked at it like they were lying, because then the kid's like, oh, it's on the Xbox. And it's like, maybe he's just emotional, maybe how that came out, but that'd be, you know. I know that Colin Kaepernick is the one that paid for the autopsy to be done and handled in Washington, D.C. Now, when the phone was accessed, I wanted to know if it was done and how it was done. When the phone was brought back to the family on the night of July 4th, it wasn't brought back to the family, but I mean, I get it why you're saying that. Nolan's mother was able to successfully bypass the lock screen. That means you're able to punch in the code, you know, the passcode. While it has not been publicly specified whether she knew his passcode or used a shared family password or used another method, public updates from the legal team confirm she gained full immediate access to the home screen. So maybe what they did with their son is like, hey, nope, if I want to be able to get into your phone, I'm going to make my face recognizable on your phone. You know what I mean? The forensic impact here is because the phone was secured by a passcode and remained in the physical possession on the teenagers for hours after returning to land, the family's legal team has raised questions about how the data was cleared. Which is a great way to like, how the fuck did they clear this out? They would have had to get into his phone and manually delete this, or is there another way? Well, to resolve this big issue, the family and the Jackson County District Attorney's Office have agreed to a joint forensic inspection. Federal experts and the FBI are analyzing the device's internal background system logs to track the exact timestamps of when data was deleted and determine if the device was accessed via a passcode or bypass method during those missing hours. The process involving server level tracking for Nolan Wells' Snapchat relies on a strict legal and forensic timeline. Because his family discovered both of his active Snapchat accounts were wiped of messages, both were wiped of messages and posts from July 4th. The FBI and local investigators are utilizing what you call a server-side data preservation request and subpoenas to recover the missing footprints. The server-side recovery timeline. Step one is you have to send over the preservation letters. So immediately after taking over the case, federal and local investigators issued formal preservation letters to Snap. A preservation letter is legally binding. Yep, it is. And it freezes all server backups, log-in histories, and unallocated metadata tied to a specific account before it can be permanently overwritten or deleted. This is what they did on Dave's phone. Now, guess what they're doing with this information? They are getting grand jury subpoenas. Legal and law enforcement experts confirmed that following the initial freeze, authorities are using grand jury subpoenas and search warrants to legally compel Snapchat to turn over those frozen server archives. Rather than fighting over the physical phone, this is what the joint forensic inspection is. Instead of fighting over the physical phone, Attorney Ben Crump and the Jackson County District Attorney's Office agreed to a joint digital inspection. This means experts from the FBI cyber unit and independent tech experts hired by the Wells' family are mutually reviewing the device logs. What investigators are extracting from the servers? According to former federal cyber investigators, Snapchat servers hold several layers of data that cannot be cleared simply by deleting the app or hitting delete on a handset. Continuous geolocation pings. Even if an active story post was deleted, Snapchat continually logs back-end GPS coordinates whenever the app is open or running in the background. Holy shit. Investigators are pulling these logs to map Nolan's exact movements on Horn Island and tracking them against the phone's later movements to the mainland pool party. Do you guys understand this? If that phone is moving on Horn Island through the period of time of like 11/17 to like 3 or 4, it'll be interesting. They're going to use cross-device metadata. If another individual used a passcode or bypassed Nolan's lock screen to manually delete his history, the server logs show it, meaning that the data will reveal the exact timestamp the files were deleted and whether the commands came from Nolan's specific device or an external login attempt. Oh my God. Do you guys know what that means? Who do they think is a techie person involved in this? Surrounding network pings. The subpoenas are also targeting the Snapchat data of the other teenagers present by overlaying Nolan's server recovered location data with the location pings of the friends' accounts. The FBI can recreate a digital map of who was physically standing near Nolan's phone when it was active. Now tomorrow we're going to hear what there's some stuff that's going to be revealed tomorrow, but just so you know, the independent autopsy funded by Colin Kaepernick, because of the massive contradictions in the timeline, former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights camp stepped forward to fully fund an independent private autopsy for Nolan Wells. A team of independent forensic pathologists is currently conducting the secondary medical review. They are specifically focusing on details that the family feels were overlooked or brushed aside by local officials. Manner of death: Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter initially announced that no foul play is suspected. The independent team is examining the body for any subtle signs of physical trauma, defensive wounds, or compression marks that would indicate an altercation took place before he entered the water. The big thing here for me is going to be the water inhalation, which is pathologists are verifying whether water was present in his lungs. This will definitively prove, I don't know if it's going to say definitively, but because you can have it will prove, they say, whether Nolan was alive and breathing when he entered the water or if he was already deceased before being submerged. Like in Joy LaBute. He did not drown in that. He was put in there prior. He was dead and then put in there. Independent toxicology, that's happening right now. The family is bypass checking the state's testing timeline by running their own independent toxicology panel. This will screen for any foreign substances, all of it. The Jackson County District Attorney's Office has confirmed that all evidence collected so far will be presented to a grand jury for a comprehensive review. So they've already claimed that we're taking everything that we have and we are submitting it to a grand jury. Which I think is great that they're, so them coming out and saying that they're going to be doing everything like this, and they're already announcing that we are. Usually they don't announce when they do. The grand jury will utilize a specific legal process to determine if criminal charges should be filed. Subpoenaing the friends. This means that the 3 teenagers who operated the boat have retained defense attorneys and are currently treating the investigation as a closed matter regarding their personal statements. So that's the other thing here. I want to know how accurate it is that any of these kids have spoken out. A grand jury has the legal power to issue subpoenas forcing these witnesses to testify under oath where lying carries severe perjury charges. Overlaying the digital evidence, prosecutors will present the FBI's forensic phone logs and Snapchat server records directly to the jurors. The jury will look at the exact timestamp showing when Nolan's data was deleted and compare that to the GPS coordinates of the boat and the house party. Determining criminal liability. Even if the forensic evidence cannot prove direct violence, the grand jury will evaluate whether the friend's actions constitute criminal negligence or reckless endangerment for leaving an 18-year-old stranded on an island, uninhabited island, while keeping his phone and wallet. No official search warrants have been publicly executed for the personal cell phones or devices of the 3 teenagers. The lack of search warrants targeting the friends' devices has become a point of frustration for the family and community. Legal experts and public figures have questioned the Jackson County Sheriff's Department's decision not to instantly seize the teenagers' personal property for forensic mirroring. So they want to take the imaging of the phone. Instead of executing search warrants on the friends' phones, investigators and prosecutors are routing their digital extraction through alternative legal avenues. So what people aren't putting out there is that, guys, we don't need their phones. We're going to go through these third-party applications. And we're going to go through all these third-party, because if we get their phones and the stuff's deleted here, let's just go get these third parties. We're going to get the data through them. I think they're actually doing it interesting, because you can then develop probable cause to then go get these phones, you know. Now, the mutual cell phone inspection. Rather than seizing new phones, the current focus is entirely on Nolan Wells's recovered cell phone. District Attorney, because remember, this is just a death investigation. District Attorney Angel Myers and Attorney Ben Crump arranged a joint forensic review. This allows independent experts hired by the family and cyber teams from the FBI to mutually extract data from Nolan's device to see if commands were sent to clear his history. Snapchat server level subpoenas. Law enforcement bypassed the physical handsets of the teenagers by using grand jury subpoenas directly targeting Snapchat, their corporate data centers, to include those other people. Because Snapchat captures continuous server-side geolocation logs. Oh my God. And account metadata. Prosecutors can review the digital interactions and positions of the teenagers' accounts on July 4th without needing physical access to their actual phones. Do you guys understand now? This answers my question. This was smart. This is like no rights are being violated, right? You're over here admitting that he has Snap. Now all of his stuff was deleted. They were the ones in possession of it, right? Okay, well, let's do this the right way, and let's take his, Nolan's phone, and we're going to issue third-party subpoenas on Snap. These kids have Snap. We're going to issue third-party subpoenas on Snap and to preserve all this data. And then we're going to go into it and you have you have the girls saying one thing, or the girls saying one thing, and you have the guys saying another thing, right? But is there a sliver of that both of them can actually be right and still it was no foul play? And then I say to myself, unless these kids come forward and say, listen, we panicked and we just deleted the stuff that was on his phone on Snap because it had us doing bad things. there would be no time to do that, in my opinion. If, like, I don't know. I'm telling you everything about getting the boat out and being so concerned about getting that boat out of the water. Somebody was totally thinking on their feet here. Because to be saying that you're having issues with your boat potentially sinking, that we can't leave it in the water because we don't know, but then you have those docks there that crank them up so it wouldn't be in the water. I don't know. I'd have to know exactly what type of dock, that private dock, and how the boat was, and if it was up on like a lift. You press your buttons and you're bringing up your boats. I don't know. This is why I'm also convinced you're not going to be able to tell me any different. The time that something happened here, with Nolan, whether it was I don't know how he would drown. I mean, it had to happen between 3:30 and 4. 3:30 and 4:30. Because not a single person, and he didn't ask for his phone back, and the reason he didn't have his phone on him, or that Katie didn't, is these investigators also just. I would hang back on. I can only imagine Katie's interview if she's talked to the authority, because you got to ask the right questions. Hanging out with somebody like the high and by for like 45 minutes. I mean, you're on someone's boat. I don't know. Could kids have panicked? Could something have happened? But at least I just wanted to have the correct timeline and I wanted to have the correct information. Because the 3 teenagers have retained defense counsel and are treating their statements as a closed matter, the case is transitioning to a grand jury. If the grand jury determines that the timeline or the server data contradicts the friends' statements, the prosecutor can then request formal charges, warrants for their physical electronics based on probable cause. The Jackson County District Attorney's Office, led by Angel, has stated that her office will turn over the completed death investigation findings to a grand jury. The grand jury will then independently determine whether there is enough probable cause to issue criminal indictments or formal charges. And that was reported by ABC News. The district attorney's official positioning regarding criminal charges focuses on 3 key guidelines. Standard procedure for unknown causes of death. The DA emphasized that presenting the case to a grand jury is the standard operating procedure in Jackson County for any death investigation that is not determined to be of a natural cause. Because Nolan Wells' final cause and manner of death remain officially unclassified, the grand jury acts as an impartial review board to assess the case file. This is not currently classified as a crime, so the DA's office was very specific to say that it has explicitly cautioned the public that sending the case to a grand jury does not mean investigators currently suspect criminal activity or foul play. Authorities state that the case is still actively classified as a death investigation rather than a definitive homicide investigation. Commitments to a thorough and active investigation. Following a private meeting with Nolan's parents and attorney Ben Crump, the district attorney assured the family that the case remains a top priority, active, and ongoing. She stated that prosecutors will wait until all information has been completely collected, including the final state autopsy report, pending toxicology logs, and the joint FBI digital phone forensics before handing the complete evidence package to the jurors. Sounds like a good plan. The FBI's Jackson Field Office, oh man, it's local, is actively tracking and investigating multiple interstate threats, by the way, sent across state lines. People are sending. So while the FBI has not publicly named the specific accounts or individuals under federal protection, several parties involved in this case have come forward regarding the severe harassment they are experiencing. That was from the Mississippi Today. Wells's family, Nolan's mother, revealed on Facebook that her grieving family has been targeted with chilling hate mail at their home. And I'm sorry, but I think people do that, and it's like you're trolling your own people, like you're whatever side you think you're on. You do that to intensify stuff. And I think that needs to start being a possibility to be considered. But listen to what they're doing. Someone anonymously mailed them a photograph from a recent press conference that had been heavily defecated and drawn on. And they were like, people are sending shit. People are sending, they're defacing photos. They're shitting on stuff. And I'm like, why would you shit and send your shit with your DNA? Let me just send my fucking shit. So let me see what you guys think about in chat. I read it was not Nolan's first time on the island. I don't think that it was. I think they go out there often. It seems like a cool place to go. People drown regularly on Gulf Coast because they don't believe or understand dangers of rip currents. That is true. That is definitely true. The question to me is, though, you wouldn't have been by yourself, right? So do you think that he got taken away and they saw him? I mean, Leslie and Neil says there's definitely a cover up here. Does anybody else think that it's interesting where they said they were, if he was in fact on that boat, to where the body was? Because I almost find it impossible if they in fact were. Okay, like his body's over here. If they were at the west tip, how would his body come back and be found, back over on the northeast? And deleted messages. Yeah. Why would he be swimming? Well, if in that area, it goes from being like, when you have bunch of those sandbars around there, you're walking and then it just drops off. So, but I mean, that still wouldn't cause you're like fine, hello, you're a swimmer. But I will tell you what, though, if they got their boat all up close on that sand and shit, you got to be really careful that you're not, like, that's what fucks with your boats. And his father said that him and his coach drove right past the area where his body was found several times, and they would have seen the body if it was there on Sunday morning. I will tell you this. I think your body goes down for a while, and then it comes and pops back up, and it needs like 48 hours to do that, according to. So it would have been too soon that he wouldn't have floated back up to the top. But I would love to hear somebody that wants to talk about the currents, because I still think it's crazy that, I mean, it definitely sounds, all of this sounds sus. Don't get me wrong. Okay. But if these are good friends of his, they would just be like, oh my God, here's this, like, hey, we already called. Like when the family friend got over there, why aren't you saying we already called the U.S. Coast Guard? You called, like, I want to know when that was kind of like the big reveal of like, you're calling the U.S. Coast Guard. I want that call to be revealed. You know, I will say this: kids can panic. You guys, kids can panic, and out there, if you're getting sucked in by the rip, if you're not a strong swimmer, it'll like you will start swallowing a ton of fucking salt water. I was out. This is back a while ago, surfing over in Palm Beach in Florida, and a freaking storm was rolling in, and I was just like, "It's fine, I'm fine." Like but dude, I was trying to swim to get back to where like the part where we were. I was so far by the rocks. I mean, it was a mother trucker, but it'll give you like a little bit of like because I was like, I didn't want to get smashed up into those rocks where I was. That's all I cared about was not hitting. And then when you get smashed up into rocks, you could hit your head and then you're just out, you know? I think for a lot of people though, depending on like, I mean, I don't know what this area is like. For me, where I was when it happened, there was a bunch of rocks. And I was like, I didn't want to get hit by the rocks, get thrown into the rocks. But I would be thinking that if you had a boat, you could like get to somebody that's, you know, being taken. I mean, I don't know. I don't know this area enough. And I think it's really interesting that when you just want to talk about, wow, what are the odds that there was a boat problem that they had out of all the boats that were out there, that was the only boat that had an issue, and that this boat was the same boat that supposedly had him on it. You know, so when you just want to, and then there's the deleted Snapchat, like the whole entire history from that day, and the media. But I don't think that. I think people saying right now, like about this whole race stuff right now, I think it's more like maybe just chill on that just a tad bit, because I would think more towards the who's influential with their positions of their jobs. Okay, than that. And it would be like, so it could just been also a perfect storm with people doing stupid shit. But I question the Snapchat, and then I question the call that was made to the Coast Guard. And I think that it should be investigated completely. And I think that the family did the right thing. I mean, I think the family did the right thing by, hey, if your kid was dead, wouldn't you be want to know everything, and that you want to know that it wasn't done in a way to like potentially cover up anything, especially if the Snapchat's been deleted. Now, if it comes out that that Snapchat was deleted at the house of where the parents live, what the fuck? So this is just super sad. But I think people increasing and making things like talk about death threats and hate or whatever, just like, man, what the fuck? I didn't hear anybody call them death threats in on Moscow. What the hell's wrong with people? And then why aren't they doing something about it? Start arresting people like that. Who the fuck is calling death threats in on anybody? I think people should start getting in trouble for that. I think people should start getting in trouble for calling in tips that they, you know, when you're fucking around with the tips. We got people that have, like, I mean, come on. You know, here in this situation, do it right. Nobody's in danger in terms of like, it doesn't seem like it would be that I don't think the communities at large is in some type of danger that the person that, if you think this is foul play, is going to go get anybody in the community. This is boating. This is drinking. This is so. And then, like I said, I think that there might be this little sliver of a window where, I mean, the girl saying, if she said, I saw him basically leave me and go to his friends and then physically leave. Like, it's also very unheard of when you pull up to areas like that, when you're like, throwing down or tying off and stuff like that, that you're not playing musical chairs with your boats. So I don't know. How did they get the drinks? I mean, the fake ID. I got a fake ID though. Don't worry, Lana. They have some people's shit. They got some DNA. Yeah, they should get in trouble for that. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Absolutely. And all the research that I've done, these aren't like, he slept over. Like, he on July 3rd, he went and spent the night. So July 3rd, he's with his friends, spent the night. Then he left his truck exactly on the lawn. His keys were left there because that's where his truck was left. That's what I would have done. That makes sense to me. Then they go to where the house is that the boat's at, and they all, get on that boat. And what it seems like to me, potentially, that there could have been more than one boat at that private dock, because of the one kid saying that he got on the next boat. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, in his interview, I didn't understand that. But I just can't believe that nobody would have seen him in distress, like, from the photos that we're looking at. There could be hidden racism. Sure can. Sure can. After doing this research, I think it's important to know that that's what I just read off here was way more information than we ever were given in, like, the Idaho 4. You talk about secrecy, of that there's the families involved. Okay. The family has their team of experts, and the district attorney is saying, yep, let's get the FBI, and then you can and let's do this together. That's pretty sweet. Don't you think? I think that's pretty sweet. So we'll see. So all that other bullshit that's going on out there, that people are trying to hype each other one way or the other, I just don't think that's. I think that's the worst thing that could happen when you get one way, either way, and, like, then you just become. You can't be rational. And I'm not gonna lie. I would, and I hope that all of you guys would lawyer up your kids immediately and just go through your attorney to properly work with authorities. Okay. By you needing and wanting an attorney, that's our right. It does not mean that you're not cooperating. That does not mean that you are guilty. It means that you're smart and you want to help in any way you can. But there's also people that get out there that get attorneys and then, we're not talking at all. That's why it's imperative that you be honest with your attorneys Because then they're going to tell you things like, yeah, you know. For example, if they did delete, let's say, the Snapchat. Hey, listen, we freaked out. What do you mean you freaked out? When we looked at Snapchat and we saw that his freaking thing was in the boat, and we freaked out, and then we called, and then we deleted it because, you know, you deleted because why? What's the problem? Well, like, it looked like he was with us last. He wasn't with us last. But why are you already thinking that something's wrong with him? Why aren't you thinking that there's a possibility that he's with other people? Well, because you were asking around and he was with none of our friends. Like, these are like the only options, and everybody was coming in off the water. And that's why it's going to matter what they told the Coast Guard. Listen, kids panic. Kids, come on. 18-year-olds. So let's wait and see what happens. The family's going to come out and speak tomorrow. I think that there is racism in every single state. So, of course, there's racist people out there. I think just to say anything about Mississippi, that's ignorant as fuck. So that's what I think. You're being ignorant as hell. Every state has racism. Every state has and I don't even call it racism anymore. It's racism and prejudice. You're a prejudicial person, right? You're a prejudicial piece of shit when you can just say that you have these prejudice against somebody that you don't even know just because of either their skin color, they're a guy or a girl, or they're this or they're that, you know? But all that shit is taught, you guys. You're not born that way. You're taught that. It's hatred. So I'm not here to give a history lesson, though. Take the timeline. That timeline's pretty fucking spanking. So hopefully this timeline has cleared up. If you want to know anything about this case, from July 3rd to July 5th at 12:26 in the afternoon. And our prayers are with the family and everybody involved. You know, everybody. This is awful. And they're not knowing. So I hope that whatever comes from this, that there's some really good evidence one way or the other. Because this doesn't need to get into Nolan Wells was with a group of friends that he had been friends with for a while. Okay. And they're white. And he has also black friends. And they were all there, you know. So let's wait and see what happens. See you guys on this story tomorrow morning. Check it out. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys. Those of you guys that want to hear anything to do with Idaho 4, all I'm doing is listening in on the Tim DeWolf and the McConklin interview. There's two really big bombs that get dropped. Dylan told one of the friends that Xana was there sleeping, you know, while Kaylee, Maddie, and, you know, those four were upstairs eating food and shit because they just got home, that Xana was sleeping in her room. What? Yeah. So until next time, peace. Peace.